Hey Dunchbags, what's going on? It's Landon Remixes here, and today we'll be reviewing the debut album from Jon Bellion. This one is called
The Human Condition.
And I've invited my friend Andrew Robertson to come here. He is just a friend from school. We're actually working on some music together, so that should be fun. But he's been a big fan of Jon Bellion a little bit longer than I have, so I figured it would be fun to have him guest star on a review. So if you guys remember my review of Zed's sophomore album, True Colors, I actually really didn't like his collaboration with Jon Bellion, Beautiful Now. I thought the lyrics were very, very cheesy, and it just kind of distanced me from listening to Jon Bellion as a solo artist for quite a while. So that was how I first heard of Jon Bellion. How did you, or where did you first find out?
First time I ever heard about Jon Bellion was actually a guy on our floor was listening to a song, and I was leaving for work, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is heaven to my ears, what is it? And I walked in, and he's like, oh, it's just Jon Bellion guy. I looked him up that night, and my ears were on fire with jealous rage for the beautiful music that this guy could create.
In the same way, it wasn't until that point when him and that guy started getting into Jon Bellion before I started really listening to Jon Bellion's solo music and getting actually really excited for it. I think it was the All-Time Low one take acoustic that I heard that, and I was just very impressive. I ended up liking the original version of the track a little bit more. Being able to see that one-take acoustic of it kind of shows off his creativity and how much control he really has of the music that he makes. And even if he's not 100% in control of the production, you can tell that he's clearly thought out everything in a very intricate process. So first thoughts on The Human Condition. What were your favorite tracks?
Favorite tracks would have to be Hand of God, 80s films. I'm going to have to go with Overwhelming. Those are probably my top three.
There's a lot of ones that were really good on there. My initial impressions of 80s films weren't extremely awesome, but I am starting to grow on it a little bit more. Of course, I like the singles All-Time Low and Woke the F Up. Those are a couple of my favorites on there. New York Soul's also a really crazy one for me. The one that actually got me to pre-order this album was Maybe IDK, which surprised me. I was kind of expecting it to be more of a fun and silly pop track, and ended up being a bit more serious. And then, of course, Hand of God. I think that's over the general Jon Bellion community, the album favorite for it. And then Guillotine's also one of my favorites, even though the main pick I have with that song is that the entire chorus is based on a rap one-liner, which is Even When I Lose My Head, Guillotine, and it's like, that's a line that could be found in any number of rap songs, and that's really the only thing that's bugging me about it. Other than that, I think the production on that is pretty creative, funky, all over the place. You can clearly tell this album has an influence with his transition from a non-Christian into a believer, as evidenced in songs like Weight of the World, which talks about letting the weight off his shoulders and onto God's. Hand of God really wraps that all up in a really beautiful sense. It actually features the choir from Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror, which was really impressive. And overall, there's a couple different tracks on this that are sampled from earlier in the album onto this track, and I think I like the sound retranslated better onto this track than in both of them. I think He Is the Same and 80s Films were both resampled onto it, and I really, really like that.
So the cool thing that I really picked up out of this album was just the types of reality that Jon puts into his music, talking about just humans in general and the type of lifestyle and the type of hardships that we all tend to endure.
One thing about Morning America I really liked is the fact that it kind of goes along with the whole first world problems meme a little bit, how people in America have it pretty easy, and we just kind of tend to throw back in our mind things in the third world, and Morning America really focuses on how average our lives is and how stupid the things we get upset over are. I did think a couple of the messages on this album were a little bit cheesy, but overall I think he's really pushing for something good here. For the most part, iRobot is also pushing off as a little bit cheesy for me, kind of talking about how his heart's been ripped out and now he's a robot. I did like the fact about that track where he actually sings like little robot bleeps, and I thought that was interesting. And another part of that, I think the vocal sampling on this album is one of the best things about this.
That was a big transition. Is what I really was looking forward to, is in the definition, a huge thing that really attracted me to the whole album was the vocal sampling and the large amount of percussion that was done not by sounds but a lot of his voice. And he is huge on filler sounds, so filler sounds of just adding stuff to to just make everything flow, and a lot of that is his voice. So I'm so glad that he kept a huge thing of vocal sampling in this new album. Personally, I enjoy the older album a little bit better just because of the style. I think that with the transition into the Human Condition, it was a little bit more of a hip-hop style. A larger amount of rap was influenced into this type of album, as opposed to The Definition had more of a relaxed, more of Owl City vibe and more like chill, and I'm so glad that he at least kept that, because that's definitely the nature of his style, and he's very passionate about those kind of filler sounds and vocal sampling, which was awesome.
I think part of the thing that makes this album really great is that he kind of diversifies that, where we get some serious bars from him on tracks like New York Soul Part 2. Even that track alone kind of generalizes what the album goes over as a whole, where we're getting a little bit of the gospel down-tempo style at the beginning, and then we get into him just dropping bars like crazy, which reappears again on Weight of the World, not with him, but with Black Keys. As well as, I think some of the vocal sampling on this album is his best work, such as on All Time Low, where we get the little ow in there, and then on Woke the F Up, when the sound kind of drops out and you just hear like, I think a lot of that is some of the most creative sampling I've ever heard vocally in a very long time, which made for this album to have some really awesome highlights.
To get a good idea of just these vocal samplings, he has videos on YouTube where he just discusses the making of a lot of his music, which I am super inspired by when I watch. Just his intelligence of music and just the whole expansive knowledge he has of musical theories. Oh, it's amazing. When he gets in the zone, he just keeps going. I was watching the All Time Low in the Making video, and I think he described it saying it was just like a 2-day project. He was like, I was in the zone, I got it done. There wasn't much to it. But seeing the creativity behind it all, of him just standing in one corner of the room yelling and screaming to make weird sounds, or making random noises again just to add to the song, was just like, wow, this guy just knows what he wants to do and does it. He has the idea of each song from the get-go. He'll stand there and he'll be like, this is what I want. He'll just say it to his phone and he'll be like, this is what I want it to be, and he'll go and it'll be done. It's outstanding.
Okay, let's talk about disappointments for a second. I think one of the biggest disappointments, and I think you'd probably agree, is that the track Woodstock, which was one of the building singles for this album, along with All Time Low and Woke the F Up, didn't reappear on this album. What did you think about that?
Personally, I was a huge fan of Woodstock. I honestly have no idea why it wasn't put on the album, but
the only other major pick I really had with this album is the first track on the album, He Is the Same. Really wasn't a big fan of it. I especially didn't like the pitched down vocals in the rap layered over the regular ones. I thought it was a bit odd just appearing in there, and didn't make for a really attractive part of the album.
Overall, I think that he had a good idea of how he wanted to start and end the album. I think that he was more focused towards the end of the album before he started making the intro to the whole album itself. But I think that generally he had an awesome idea with how he started it off, and how he put the songs in order to kind of make up a whole story about just, again, the different trials and temptations that we as humans have to go through, but overall, from the start and end, realizing that God is still the same, which I think is an awesome message. And even though we're able to see the true nature of humanity through just the lyrics that he puts, and keeping some of the explicit content in there, it just stays true to the nature of the music, which I think is cool. But he still influences the people and brings out a strong message in the album.
Although he's a recent convert to Christianity, and a lot of my favorite Christian music is, of course, very, very censored in that aspect, I really like this album for the fact that he doesn't censor himself in that way. Of course, we know he's collaborated with Christian artists like Andy Mineo before. I hope to see him kind of collaborate more in that realm in the future, but I love how true he stays in that aspect, which I definitely agree with you on.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead. I think the best rating I can give this album is a 7.5. What are you thinking for yourself?
It's hard for me to go below a 7.5. I'm gonna go probably 8.
8?
So yeah, solid 8 out of 10.
Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this little bit of a different review. I'm going to go ahead and link the album in the description. Let me know if you guys want to see more reviews with this guy, because obviously he's very smart about music, and I want to feature him more in the future. So let me know if you enjoy him. Make sure to listen to the album if you haven't yet, and let me know your favorite tracks in the comments section below. Anyway, I'm Landon Remixes.
I'm Andrew Robertson. I don't have remixes, but it's still alright. I'm a cool guy.
Alright.
Sometimes.
I'll see you guys later. Peace.